Alright everyone, so today I'm going to be going over modifiers. A modifier is something like public, static, and void. Now, this will basically teach you how the main function works. First off, the main function is needed for a Java program to run at all, so because one of the classes have to have a main, so it knows what function to run first. So you always need this defined. Now, void just means that it doesn't return anything. In some other languages, like C, the idea is that you always have it return something. So instead of saying void, you would say like int and then always include a return 0 to show that your program exited like correctly. But Java is a newer language, and that means that they don't like doing the things the old way. They like doing them the new way. And so instead, main just doesn't return anything, and that's kind of what that means. But you always have to make sure that you have a main function in here and that it does something. It returns what it says, and if it doesn't return anything, you don't say return. Because if you say return 1, you'll get an error saying that it's not supposed to return a value. And so you want to get rid of that. Right in here, this is something aside from modifiers that I'll also cover so that you guys can understand more about the main method before we just get into purely what modifiers do. This defines a string array, which is the arguments. So if you were to run this through command line, you could put in like words in the command prompt. I'll kind of show you what I mean. Like right in here, you would say something like Java test and then space hello, and it would take hello as an argument into the function main. And so that's basically what that does. And so it's always nice to have that in there in case you need to pass something through command line, which not a lot of programs do. Like for instance, a program like Minecraft does not do that. It has no need to, but if you ever make an application that's not graphical, you need something like that in case someone needs to use flags like tac A or whatever. So yeah, let's now get into the actual modifiers. We're going to make another function, and I will call it power. Or not power, let's just have something we'll call it say, because it'll say whatever string is put into it. So we're going to say public static void, or public static string. And now string is the return type. It's a type of a variable, so it'll say, okay, we're returning a string somewhere in this method. Public says that this is public to everything. Everyone can use this method. If you don't plan to use a function in other classes, you can say private, but I never have really needed to make something private, so I always leave them public, which is the default, which means if you don't have public there, the Java virtual machine will still see, okay, it doesn't say private, therefore it must mean public. But it's always good practice to say something is public rather than just letting something default. So if there's ever a default value, it's always good to explicitly define what you want it to be. Now static is a little tricky. Static just means that you're not making an object of that class in order to access the method. So we don't have to say, we don't have to define a variable called example of the YouTube type and have it equal to new YouTube. Instead, we can just call this method without having to worry about that, which means that it's static. If we got rid of static, we would have to make an object in order to use this method. Otherwise, we would not be accessing it in a static way. So main, for instance, is called right away, and so it's static because they don't initialize an object of it. So it's called statically, so you always want to make sure that it's static. And this function I'll show you guys both in static and non-static and what the difference is, and I'll even show you how to access static methods from other classes. So that'll be kind of cool. So I don't see really anything more we should add to our function. One more thing I want to tell you guys though is this is not like set. You don't have to always say public static string. You could say like static public string. But where are we getting here? Oh yeah, it says class body, whatever. But it's not. It won't give you an error, but it's bad practice. People, if you read someone else's code, it'll always be like that because that's what you're supposed to do. It makes your code easy to read, and it's normal. You want your code to be just like everyone else's as far as syntax. You don't want to have messy code. It's bad. It's harder for you because you have to learn how to program that way, and you won't know what you were thinking when you made the code, which always makes maintaining it a lot harder. So yeah, let's just make this same method and parentheses and make the actual class body. Go down there. Okay, so for the arguments we're just going to say string words, and we'll just go down here, say return string or return words, and done. Now we can actually use this method. Let's go up into the main class or main function up here, and we'll say something like system out.println, and we'll say hello. And if we run this class and everything goes well, we should get hello like we do. Perfect. Now this is how you access something statically. We just called the function, we never made an object. We never made like a YouTube type variable and said like example.say. We just said say, which means that we're accessing it statically. Now if you define a method, for example, if we were to take this out of YouTube and put it inside of car, it's going to say that it's not part of this class. So even though we're accessing it statically, we're not saying where it's statically coming from. So we have to say if you're using a static method from another class, it's still there, but you have to say from the car class access the say method, which is essentially accessing it statically from that class as if the static method was in the original class. And so we have a working function, and that's pretty much how static works. Now I'm going to show you guys private. Private is pretty much self-explanatory. If we were to take this and instead of saying public said private, even though it's static, we cannot use it here because we get this error. It's not visible. So we'd have to change the visibility to default, which is public. It'll erase private, but again, always nice to say public. And that's pretty much your introduction to modifiers. Basically, the first one should always be its visibility, what scope it's in, public or private. Next one's whether or not static. And then the third one is its return type. Is it a string, double, float, integer, character, whatever. Anything like that, it's should go here. Thank you guys for watching. I'm sorry I haven't been making videos lately. I had some technical issues, and while I was trying to get some stuff set up for after we get done with all the Java tutorials, I just a lot of things had to be done, and just a lot of time taken away from videos. So I will be making more of them. Sorry for being gone for so long. Like the video if you like it. Subscribe if you want to see the future episodes. And favorite the video if you really like it and want to come back to review anything that I said. In the comments section below, if you have anything that you want me to clarify, or if you have any corrections for something I misspoke about, then feel free to leave that down there, or PM me, your choice. And yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll be seeing you guys later.